Hello, I'm going to be explaining how the internet used hate symbols for good. Okay? Like, I'm telling you, right now, a lot of these flags are still viewed as hate symbols. Okay? And, unfortunately, it's really, really hard for people to get really past that. I mean, yeah, I get that there were people who died. There were people who gone through the war. But it's also like at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't be allowed to talk about these things. You know? Like, we should be allowed to show those kind of flags. Because if you don't and you still have that social stigma of, hiding those flags and stuff like that, basically what you end up doing is it was like the war never ended in the first place. You know, it's like you never really get to post-World War II when you have flags like that. And I'm saying post-World War II because the biggest flag, like that has the hugest social stigma on there, the number one biggest one, and communist is a second only to the Nazi flag. And the Nazi flag is more social stigma because when it comes to more social stigmatized, it's because of, one, the Jews, and two, because for some people, they'll view some certain people a certain way. And if you're wondering, historically, sure, it was a right-wing ideology. But, like, it wasn't exactly fascist. I mean, it was a part of it. It was a part of the system. But the thing is that fascism, rather than Nazism. Nazism is definitely right-wing. It's just fascism is one of those things where it's neither left nor right-wing, but it's mostly associated with the right-wing because of World War II, rather than, people looking at it through a more neutral lens. But because, again, of Italy and, modern-day Germany, that's what it was, and that's what it's been, I don't know what else to tell you, man. Well, anyway, that's pretty much it for the Nazi flag, and then the Soviet flag, that still has some stigma to it because of Russia and the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, and basically any country that was under it. They say it's like 23 countries, 23 countries now that are, that were a part of the USSR, before they were splitting up into countries, and at least at the time, from what I'm told, it was about 15, when they originally split it off. At least that's what I'm told. But what's the funniest part about the 1991, at least from what I'm told, Soviet breakup, when they split it up and balkanized into a bunch of countries, is that Russia was the first country to leave. It was the first country to leave the USSR. Like, I find that kind of funny because it's like, they're so pro-Soviet still, even though, like, yeah, they're Russians or whatever, but, like, there's still that, because of the war going on, like, the propaganda's getting in their head. And then another one is the Japanese. And the thing is that this was an era when Japan hated the U.S., like it was a love-hate relationship. You know what I mean? Like it was that era of basically Japan and the U.S. used to love each other back in the Civil War days, but then they sort of started to hate each other, and then eventually they really hated each other. And then, it's like that one couple who, like, a long time ago got divorced and then eventually got remarried because, everything calmed down, everything changed or whatever. That's basically what Japan and the US are now, Like, they weren't really fully allies until, like, the 50s, Like the 50s, 60s, Because that's when everything started to really wear off, and that's just how it's been. And then you get to finally the Confederacy. Oh boy, how can I tell you? Like, yes, it had to do with slavery when it was starting to be used in terms of when it had its strongest social stigma in the 1860s, mind you. This flag, this symbol that back then really was a hate symbol, at its peak like that during the height of the Civil War, eventually over the decades, and especially during the 1890s, during the Gilded Age, people started just seeing it as more of a Southern symbol. Like, it was still considered somewhat a hate symbol because of slavery or whatever, but during World War I and World War II, especially World War I, that flag mostly weared off in the South. Like, it just became mostly a part of their heritage and their pride. So they turned a hate symbol into a good thing. But it didn't completely, flip into a good thing. Like, people didn't really realize that that's what the South was mostly using it for. Not even in the 60s and the 70s, when they were wanting, equality and stuff, and in the 50s too, but getting rid of Jim Crow laws or whatever, It wasn't really until the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and in this decade as well, that people started to really realize that, hey, maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, exactly, And now, it's mostly just a part of their heritage. It's just a part of their history. Yes, it originally stood as a bad thing, but now it's like, hey, it's a historical symbol. It's a symbol of just their history, Like, it has to do with bad things, sure, but it was a long time ago, and really does make a good history lesson if you teach it right, if you teach it historically accurate, that kind of thing. But there's also a lot of other flags that are still very much stigmatized and, attacked at. But usually most flags that are heavily stigmatized are usually the ones that are more closer to the modern day, Like, if it was an ancient flag, like the Roman, like the Romans did, or whatever civilization was, say, 500 years ago, then it's like, okay, whatever. But if it's seen as, closer to the modern day, then they're like, oh yeah, that's bad, that's evil, that's whatever, Because it's still current and relevant. Stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think, people are gonna start using, say, ISIS flags, or Hezbollah flags, or LGBTQIA plus flags, even though that's seen as a good thing in today's society. But it is, those are still kind of viewed as, more modernistic, more of the current day, versions of hate symbols. Those are viewed as hate symbols to that extent. Now, even if you don't agree with me saying that those are hate symbols, here's the thing. Those are very, close to the current now, at least time of recording, as I'm saying this. So because of it, it has a lot more social stigma and a lot more, don't like it, or the Iran flag, The one that doesn't have the lion on it. Because of this kind of stuff, it makes it very, very hard for people to just, like, accept the fact that these flags are really old, and also they're just kind of, you know, like, good design, but, like, they're from a long time ago. You know, they're like historical figure flags, you know? And if you look at today, if you look at today, a lot of the bad guys have really changed over the years, you know? Like, it's so strange. Same thing with good guys as well, you know? That's a thing. But yeah, unfortunately, flags do go through eras of abuse. You know, they go through eras of, you know, when their flag was used for a bad thing. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. That doesn't mean you have to permanently keep it a hate flag. You know, because people are so of their time, they're so stuck in whatever the latest current day is, that just imagining, hey, a world where this flag doesn't mean hate, this flag, insert flag here, controversial flag here, doesn't mean, you know, bad things, is just like they can't comprehend, because it goes so much against their cognitive bias, you know? Left and right, you know what I mean? Regardless of political view, religious view, you know, religious or spiritual, you know, view on sports, video games, movies, books, songs, foods, skin tone, races, ethnicities, genders, if you want to go that far, sexualities, you know, things like that. Whatever an individual could be different from another, or similar to, or the same, that kind of thing. But yeah, the internet really turned these hate symbols into good symbols, okay? Alright? Very controversial video, you know, because they still have that social stigma on them. But anyway, that's all I got to say in today's video. So I'm going to end it. And, yeah. Bye!